Hi guys, this is Mike L, G.I. Jolie, and Clark Brent from the Comic Book Syndicate. We just watched X-Men Apocalypse, and we're going to let you know right now what we thought. I think the first third of the film, I was 100% in. I was waiting for something bad to happen, and nothing bad happened. But then as the movie went on, I felt like it was just a little bit, it was almost like an infection of mediocrity came in the last act, and I didn't quite know what was going on with the plot. And so it did lose me a little bit at the end, but it's like I'm not disappointed, but I'm also not blown away.
I loved it. F you, everybody on Rotten Tomatoes. This film was awesome.
I liked it better than I thought I would. I mean, going into it though, I had the Rotten Tomato meter as my barometer for how good the movie would be. But I think it deserves far more than a 48%.
What is it you think this movie got right?
The relationship between Xavier and Magneto, I care way more for these two men than I did for like the original X-Men films.
I thought Magneto's arc was so good. Like, I want to see a whole Magneto movie. Exactly, here you go. Michael Fassbender's so good. What did you think about him as Magneto?
He was definitely MVP of the movie, by far.
He's such a damn good actor, and the script is not great, but his lines seemed better than everyone else's. So maybe there was a lot of ad-libbing, I don't know.
Probably because he took it upon himself to make Kinberg's script a little better.
Yeah. Patrick Stewart is a great actor. Ian McKellen is a great actor. But it was very obvious that Patrick Stewart felt the material was beneath him, which it kind of was. But he almost like didn't know what to do in the role. This guy, James McAvoy, is having so much fun, and he's so into this role. He's funny. He's got a lot of great one-liners in this movie, like laugh out loud moments. And Ian McKellen is a great actor. But Michael Fassbender as Magneto, are you kidding me? You're watching this movie, the scenes of him working in a factory, and you're like, what, is this a Lars von Trier movie? There's no indication this is a superhero film. It's like this is a drama. This guy's hiding out. Like, it's amazing.
Like, it didn't feel like a Bryan Singer film. Like, I was surprised. I was shocked. I wanted to see a film that was like just Magneto in Poland, like how he learned to speak Polish, when he met his wife, like when he had that child.
It's almost like there's two movies always going on at once. There's like the theme and the drama, and then there's the plot, the superhero plot. What's Apocalypse's plot? Oh, he's gonna make a bunch of buildings? Like, what was he trying to do?
From what I gathered, he was going to destroy the world, and he was well on his way with Magneto helping him. And then he was going to transfer his consciousness into the body of Xavier to take Xavier's powers and basically create a monoculture where he was able to think for everybody and put ideas in their heads and basically control this master race.
Okay. There could have been just a film about Magneto in there. Mm-hmm. He really was the most interesting character in the movie, and he's almost like the protagonist. You're following him through the whole movie, and at the end of the movie, his arc is the most interesting. Did you notice, Brent, that only men cried in this film?
Now that you say that, I did not realize that, but that's very interesting and a far cry from how we view blockbusters decades ago.
I criticized Bryan Singer a lot, but we got to give him credit. He did help bring superhero movies into the modern day by making the first X-Men film at least attempt to be serious. Like, really, it's a drama with mutants put into it. It's not a typical superhero film, and that's one tiny advantage it has over the Marvel Studios films, where the Marvel Studios films are a little bit more fantastic, a little bit winking to the camera. This feels like a drama. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot more heavy. There's a lot more substance. The writing is deeper. Don't always agree with the plot. Don't always agree with some of the character choices or the creative decisions, like to kill off, for example, Cyclops in X-Men 3. Mm-hmm. But I think these movies have a lot more weight to them, and they have a lot more themes that resonate with audiences, and you can take that away from these movies.
Let's talk about Jean Grey. I was a little bit concerned that Sophie Turner got the role, but she won me over. I thought she was great. What did you think?
I love her. I think she's wonderful. I follow her on Instagram.
So do I.
I love that cute little American accent she's putting on there. No, it was good. She was good. And actually, this is a very minor observation, was the fact that this is the first time Jean has had red hair and her green eyes in the films. Before Famke, God love her, she had brown eyes. And something about it, had that girl next door vibe. I liked her a lot. But I will agree, though, with G.I. Jolie, I don't know if I love how rushed her arc was. Could have used a little more scenes of her struggling, maybe screwing up inside Stryker's base where, she couldn't hold her powers, and then, something like that would have been really cool to kind of reinforce the idea that she doesn't have control over her powers. But other than that, she was great. She was great. Her arc, not so great.
Did you like Jean Grey's arc?
That was Singer-esque to me. It seemed a little quick to me.
Well, there's hints of it at the beginning of the movie, but
remembered.
not enough, right? Like,
Exactly. Like, at least with the original Jean Grey, played by Femke Janssen, like, we saw a progression of, like, her losing control. She was in control, and then she lost control. In this one, she was never in control.
what do you think about the new Cyclops?
I liked Cyclops. He did a really good job of playing that teenage angst, you know. He was kind of like what Rogue was in the first X-Men movie. He was your insider into the Institute again. So I appreciated that.
What about Psylocke finally making her way to the silver screen? What do you think?
Psylocke, you know what? I went in again hearing that Psylocke didn't have a lot to do. And while that is true, she does not have an arc to speak of in any sense of the word. She did have presence. The Horsemen in general did have presence. They didn't have a lot to say, but when they were on screen, you were paying attention to them. And I liked her.
Not
She
a
didn't-
lot.
She didn't say much, eh?
She said enough.
She looked good, though.
Yeah, she looked great.
Her costume was exactly like the comic book, which I thought was kind of cool because most of the X-Men costumes look nothing like the comic
Yeah,
book.
do you know what? I like that.
What did you think about Rose Byrne as Maura McTaggart?
I'm a little curious as to why she was in Egypt at the beginning of the movie. That wasn't explained too well. Just that she's been researching cults, I guess. That was a little contrived. That was a little silly.
What did you think of this angel?
I don't know. As well as being a human printer, he must have magic too. Ancient Egyptian magic. For what? Belated wings to be able to fly?
Again, if they would have followed the comic books, they could have introduced him at the proper time as a founding member. They could have had him develop. They could have had Apocalypse intervene right at the moment of his attempted suicide, just like the comics. But they haven't had him in the last 5 films, other than one brief scene in X-Men 3. So the character was not able to develop.
No, it wasn't able to develop, and they clipped his wings too soon. And that's it. He can fly. That's it.
I know. So he got shortchanged.
A little bit.
What do you think about Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse?
This is very obscure, but his nose took me out of the scene for some reason. He looked great. I love his acting, and I loved his lines. He was very Shakespearean, talking very holier than thou. It was very reminiscent of the 90s cartoon, where he had said some very ethereal sayings, very ethereal ideas. I liked that, but again, his motivation was a bit piss poor, and he spent a lot of time recruiting his horsemen. Maybe he should have spent more time just actually, explaining what the heck he's going to be doing, because you had to kind of infer.
Now, we're fans of Oscar Isaac, right?
I love him.
In this movie, he seemed to be underutilized. Like, what did you think about his acting?
It's hard. You're playing like a godlike creature, right? Like how does one play a godlike creature? How does one prepare for a role like that? I feel like that's how I would play it. I thought he was fine.
I thought he was okay. I just think that there was almost nothing that he did that anyone else couldn't have done. So I was a little disappointed by him. He also didn't look quite right. He wasn't intimidating enough. It was kind of weird to see Apocalypse sneaking around Egypt, recruiting people in back doors, and I don't know. It was just kind of odd.
He wasn't scary until Professor Xavier went into his mind and fought him in his mind, and then he started to grow. That was when I was like, okay, do you know what? Maybe they can't beat him. Hello, Evan Peters. You ridiculously wonderful breath of fresh air. What a great character. What a great treatment. Nightcrawler. He's not one-dimensional, but he's complex enough that I think everybody who has to handle him gets him. Bryan Singer definitely loves him.
X-Men, I think you can make the argument, is the only major comic series so far that hasn't rebooted. They had a soft reboot, but they still use those flashbacks. Even in Days of Futures Past, they were using flashbacks from the original trilogy in the movie to drive the plot forward.
Yeah.
So I think it has a lot richer of a history, and it's more rewarding to watch this as a series.
One weakness with this film, there's too many characters, right? You have so many team members. They all have their own story. And this is not like a film where we go in, you don't know who each one is. We know who Jubilee is. We know who Jean Grey is. We know who Havoc is. And so whenever the characters shortchange, we really feel it, right? Because we're like, well, wait a minute. How come Jubilee only had 2 lines?
Well, and that's the thing for me is that, like, when you mess with their story, it makes it really confusing for someone like me who has no background. It makes me feel kind of silly.
Well, Bryan Singer, unfortunately, they screwed up the timeline for all the characters from the very beginning. They tried to fix it. It still doesn't work. The timeline is 20 years out of whack. I mean, characters are too old, too young, and whatever. You can argue that they shouldn't have changed it, but because they changed it, they've made certain storylines impossible to adapt. So that's all I'll say about that. How do you compare this film to its Marvel Studios rival, Civil War?
Okay, this is going to be a thing that a lot of people are talking about. Poor X-Men Apocalypse had to open 3 weeks after Civil War, and Civil War was a fantastic movie, and everybody's going to crap on this movie because of the fact that it's in the trails of Civil War. It's not as good as Civil War.
Okay.
It's not. But it's certainly not as bad as...
Why did you say that name? Mother! So after seeing X-Men 6, are you looking forward to the next X-Men film?
Is it gonna still be by Fox?
Yes. As it stands now, yes, it will be.
Is it gonna still have useless cameos with Wolverine in it?
Yes, it will.
Then I stand quietly reserved.
Overall, decent movie, good movie, better than some, not as good as others. Do you recommend it?
I give it 3 out of 4 horsemen.
Ooh, I like it. Did you like Phoenix's, or I'm sorry, whoops! Did you like Jean Grey's arc?
What?
Martha. Remember Martha? Martha.